my medicine. Because even if you take those medicine, you're still eating in between meals. And the body has a lot of, your drug has a lot of difficulty trying to adjust because you are eating even after meals. It says here that constant grazing, ha? Lalo na pag may snack, no? Nanonood ng TV with high sugar foods, chocolate, disrupts microbial balance and increased intestinal permeability. It is also associated with the higher, BMI and insulin levels, while structured meal patterns led to better weight management. So if you're, let's say, trying to lose weight, it is always very important to eat at regular intervals. Otherwise, this will disrupt your gut system. Now, how does the gut function in between? Can you still see it? We call that interdigestive motility. Our body, our system needs to rest somehow. And the reason for that rest is it cleans the system. Nililinis niya. It's almost like if you travel, you take the bullet train in Japan. Did you notice the train in Japan? When they reach their destination, they stop for a while, right? And the janitor comes in and they clean it, no? Although we don't see it here, but in countries like Japan, they clean it. So by the time the next passenger takes a ride, you will see that it's so clean. Ang ganda pag malinis, di ba? I think the same idea is being promoted here, that it has to be clean so that when the next meal comes around, it can function properly. Wala yung mga tira-tira. Okay? And then of course, the other thing is frequent snacking will interrupt your migrating motor complex, which will lead to bloating, bacterial overgrowth, and sluggish digestion. So bakit ang daming bacteria? Bakit madali ka magkasakit? Because of that. And of course, it also disrupts the link between the physiology of the gut and also the brain. Now, the next one, of course, is we don't do this, but just to mention to you that tea and coffee do not nourish the system. Aray ko po. Ha? Talagang bawal talaga, Joms, no? Ha? Ano sa tingin mo? Okay? The action of such stimulants is followed by a reaction, and the strength is less than before. Now let's see what's happening here. Coffee increases acid. So I mentioned already to you na kung gusto nyo ng pure coffee, anong i-order nyo? Espresso. Espresso that's very pure. Of course, we also understand that most of the disease brings the acidity down, which means acidic. And the more acidic you are, the more frequent you will develop those diseases. So coffee will increase that acidity and will cause reflux. Kung may mga kayo, how many of you are suffering from GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease? Yung GERD, yung parang pag mayroong yung acid bumabalik, okay? And then you'll ask the doctor, Doc, is coffee okay? And the doctor said, yes, it's okay. No, it's not okay. Okay? Because the doctor that's responding to you is also drinking coffee, the same. So they will not tell you the right one. Okay. And then, of course, it is linked to anxiety and mood disturbance, especially if a high caffeine intake. It disrupts your sleep. I know it disrupts your sleep. Coffee disrupts your sleep. And of course, the tea has a substance called tannins, which block iron absorption. So if you are, let's say, anemic, avoid tea, regardless of whether you're drinking green tea, whatever tea you are drinking, it has tannins. Okay? And then, of course, it has physical dependency, especially if you try to withdraw it. So black tea and green tea contain tannins, which can inhibit iron absorption. So that's the idea. I did not say that That's based on the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Okay? Because baka sabihin nyo, ini-invento ko lang. Okay? And then, of course, it increases gaseous acid secretion and the calf. Okay, what about the calf? It also relaxes the lower sphincter, contributing to GERD. So even the decaf can contribute to GERD. Mag-decaf na lang ako kasi same thing. So I mentioned earlier that when Ellen White received this vision in 1863, she doesn't want to reveal this to the people. Ayaw niya. You know why? Because he will be offending a lot of people. Sabi niya, wag natin ilabas. Nag-hesitate siya ilabas. But the Lord told him, you have to tell everybody whether they feel good or not. You have to tell them. And it includes coffee and tea. The other thing is tobacco, because before, they used tobacco for what? To treat lung disease. Can you imagine? If you have a lung disease, you'd have to smoke. And then, of course, that was their belief. And then, of course, they also believe that in order for you to be strong, you eat meat. And there's always that question of, everybody thinks that the only source of protein is meat. Have you heard about that? Sabi nila, oh, I need meat because that's protein. Don't you know that if you actually synthesize the meat itself, 50% of that meat is actually made up of fat. Kumbaga, i-dissect mo yung meat mo and then you try to evaluate the amount of different ingredients in the fat, in the meat. 50% of that is meat. So it's not purely protein. So if you are a plant-based eater, the good source of protein would be beans, nuts, and grains. Those are good sources of protein. But you cannot just say that because you need protein for muscle buildup, you need to eat meat, because meat is not just a source of protein. And then, of course, we know that caffeine and sleep will disrupt your sleeping patterns. And then at the same time, the gut and the brain existed even before that. The relationship is too close to each other that whatever we put into our stomach goes into our brain. And there are so many bacteria in our system, trillions of them. And you also hear people saying, alam mo yung gut feeling ko. Have you heard about that? Yung gut feeling ko. Bakit nila sinabi yung gut feeling ko? Because the gut has a hormone called serotonin that is not coming from the brain, but instead comes from the gut. So that expression, gut feeling, doesn't really arise from the brain itself, but from the gut, because the gut is the source of serotonin that is produced by a cell called chromatomatin cells, interchromatin cells. And these cells are the ones which helps us in the intuition. Alam mo yung, di ba yung mga babae, mabilis sila alam mo yung tingin sa'yo ni iba. Ha? Parang may ibig sabihin. Ano ibig sabihin? Parang mangungutang. Iba ang tingin sa'yo, ha? Okay. So, that is why it's very important that we know exactly where it's coming from. Now, looking at this microbial microscopic view of the gut, you will notice that on your left, that's the normal. On your right, it's the abnormal. So anything that disrupts the cells will lead to leaks. So pag may leak, yung magnanakaw can just come in easily, right? And this is exactly what's happening here, because when there is a leak, all the toxins, the bad substances will come into the system indiscriminately. And that is why it is important that we make sure that the gut is not disrupted. And we already know what disrupts that because I have explained to you earlier. Those are the things that we need to avoid. So diet plays a central role in regulating the microbiota. So we know that when we have a good source of food, our microbiota is good. Diets rich in fiber, fermented foods, omega-3 fatty acids, and polyphenols support beneficial microbes. While the other one, rich in sugar, processed foods, and saturated fats, disrupts the microbiome or the microbiota. So it's a very simple trade-off. You choose this is what's going to happen. You choose this one, this is what's going to happen. So it's really up to us. So eating is always a choice. You can always choose to be healthy or not at all. Now, how about rest and digestion? Now that you are resting, of course you're resting. You're not eating right now. Do you? Or don't you? Do you eat? Are you eating now? Not yet, no? Secretly eating. Okay. So, Ellen White emphasizes the importance of resting after meals and maintaining a balance between work and rest. And he is also emphasizing the fact that we have to rest our stomach immediately after eating because that's important for absorption. Digestion is controlled primarily by the parasympathetic nervous system. So there is rest after eating. It has to relax. And the purpose of that is to allow the enzymes to digest our food, for gastric motility, and of course, the blood going to your GI tract. And that is why you feel sleepy. You feel sleepy because all the blood circulation goes to your gut. Now, Charles Spurgeon says, whatever God has made prominent in His Word, He intended to be conspicuous in our lives. So this is a very good reminder to us that we are given this message, this health message. You know, the health message is always the right arm of the gospel. Sometimes it's very hard to witness for other people, right? But the moment we open up topics about health, they're open. And they're listening to you. They will tell you, oh yeah, I've got this problem. And the moment you help them, they will start asking, so, bakit hindi ka nag-work pag Saturday? Bakit ang ano mo ganito, ganyan? So, you can tell them, okay, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, I do this and that. So, it's very easy to open up when the health topic is shared. And that's why Ellen White said the health reform is part of the third angel's message. So while we're preparing for our crusade, let's remember also that some people are observing us and they would like to know exactly what we believe. So it's like an arm and hand function with human body. Ellen White also said, it is the privilege of every soul to be a living channel through which God can communicate to the world the treasures of His grace. The unsearchable riches of Christ, there is nothing that Christ desires so much as agents who will represent to the world His spirit and His character. He will not only see our character, He will not only see our spirit, He will also see our lifestyle. What is this lifestyle all about? And that is why she said, the health reform is the Lord's means for lessening suffering in our world and for purifying our church. So while it is true that we are doing this crusade, we are doing this activity, it is also important to understand that it is also a means by which we can help others. You see, when you are in pain, you cannot postpone that pain for so many days, right? Joms, pag masakit ang tuhod mo, hindi mo postpone dyan. You cannot bike. You cannot just, si Brother Josh was operated dun sa kanyang paa. If you are in pain, you cannot say, okay, I'll have this done next month. You cannot. You have to call right away. Hey, doctor, can I make an appointment? When? Now. Huh? That's why many times with my patients, kanina nga, dami kong text, hindi ko pinapansin kasi, pero lahat sila masakit. Doctor, I want an appointment. Because they're in pain. Hindi mo sila matawaran. Can I just see you tomorrow? Right away. Parang, hindi talaga nila alam ang gagawin. Because if you're in pain, you cannot postpone it. You want to see right away. Kahapon, we were going to AUP already. Then 3 o'clock, no, 3:40, 4 o'clock, may tumawag. Where can I see you? Sabi ko, what do you mean, where can I see you? I'm home. We're preparing for church. And then I said, okay, I'll just see you next week. Aba, humabol talaga. No, I want to see you now. Sabi ko, it's almost sunset. Sabi ko, you have to be at home. You have to be, kasi wala tayong choice. Gusto niyang pumunta sa bahay. O sige. Okay, it's already 5:30. If you don't come here by 5:30, we're gonna leave. Oh, dumating sila ng mga 5:15, mga 5:10. Okay. Tapos, siyempre, in pain siya. Gusto niya ng treatment. So we treated him and right after that, they left. Oh, buti nakahabol ka pa kasi aalis na kami. Oh, magsa-sunset na. Tininan ko yung oras, 6:28, sunset. Natapos kami mga 6:10. Habol pa. Oh. But you know, those are the types of concerns that you will encounter because when a person is in pain, you cannot postpone. They will really say, fix this, fix this. And that is why this health reform is important because, as Ellen White said, this is one way of lessening suffering. And to some extent, they will ask you a question because I always tell them, okay, part of the treatment is not just the injection. Part of the treatment is also changing your lifestyle. And some people suspect, are you trying to convert us to Adventist? Sabi ko, don't you see it? I've been converting you already. I'm not converting you. I'm already telling you. So, ano to, Doc? Talagang gagawin mo kaming Adventist? Of course. Because that's the only lifestyle that will treat you. Sabi ko, ang kulang na lang dito, baptism. Oh. But jokingly, you tell them that. But it makes sense, right? Because actually, if we have to rephrase this statement, the work of health reform is the Adventist work. That is what it means. Is the means by which we lessen suffering in our world. Because what we introduce to the people is not just about what forms part of our doctrine. It's actually Adventist belief. So there's no other way. Even among doctors, when I tell them this, because it's not only patients who come, also doctors comes. Because they have their pain as well. Sabi ko, sisingilin pa rin kita kasi doktor ka eh. Kahit parehas tayong doktor. Kasi iniistorbo mo ako eh. Pero sabi ko sa kanya, pag naging Adventist ka, hindi na. Kaso lang, ka pa eh. Hindi ka pa Adventist eh. Okay. So, in other words, we have a message to tell our people. We have to tell them about God's love, but we also have to tell them how it is to live, observing proper and healthy lifestyle. So I hope this message has helped you this afternoon. Medyo boring yung lecture natin, no? Pero nakikita ko naman walang inaantok eh. Ano yun? Question? Bakit? May question pa ba? Okay. Okay, ma'am. Lira. Ang healthy tea lang is honesty. Ha? Pwede rin, serenity. Okay. You know, lahat kasi ngayon, pag nilagyan mo ng something, ang tawag na nila tea. There are times when it's not really a real tea, but they still call it tea. For example, if you grow tarragon plant, do you grow tarragon plant? Do you know tarragon? Okay. Yung tarragon, You can just plant, it's like an herb. Mabango siya, mabango. Or kahit yung yung lavender. Mabango din yun. You know lavender? Yung parang lavender. Okay. So, labandera, ibig sabihin. Lavandera. Okay. So, if you get warm water, tapos lagyan mo ng mga 2 or 3 leaves ng tarragon, and then let it stand for 2 minutes. Mabango kasi siya, so it's very nice to drink. Okay? Pwede mo lagyan ng mint. Okay? Yung asawa ko nilagyan ng mint or lemon. Yeah, parang din siya. Parang ganun din. But these are not tea. Tea kasi is a plant talaga yan. Tea is a plant. But somehow, may mga nagagawa ng tea na hindi naman talaga tea. Pinaghahalo-halo lang nila yung grass doon sa, Josh, yung doon siguro sa, tas ang tawag na nila tea. Pero minsan yung mga tea na ganun, hindi naman talaga totoong tea. But you can tell because if they are selling it as tea, it must be tea. So to me, yung tea, whatever you call it, mayroon talaga silang tannins. It has a component called tannins that is not also good. But of course, he will always tell you, green tea is healthy. Tapos kung mahilig pa kayo mag-Google, mag-chat GPT, ang dami doon nakalagay kung ano-ano. But you cannot rely on those information anymore kasi minsan it was a result of advertisement. Ilalagay yung picture mo tapos kung ano-ano na ang sinasabi. Okay. So, gano'n na lang ma'am, gawa ka na lang ng house tea. Yes. Okay. Right now, it's very difficult to actually delineate between regular and regular because what may be regular to you may be irregular to me. For example, kunyari, if your regular meal is 3 times a day, okay, kasi the assumption is dapat may gap siya talaga na 2 to 3 hours in between. In fact, before sleeping, at least 4 hours. Pag assuming na yung pagkain mo kasi, we call that the latent phase, from the time you eat up until the time when it reaches the colon, that is 4 hours, yun dapat ang rest period mo. Now, that will allow time for the food that you eat to be absorbed properly. Kasi yung nutrients natin is usually absorbed, 90% of the food that you eat is absorbed in the large intestine. It's not absorbed in the small intestine. Siguro may 20%. Can I still show a slide here? No more. Pwede pa ba? Asan na ba sino ba yung nag-set up nito? Pwede pa ba to? I'm going to show you something. This is a different lecture actually. Okay, yan. The regularity is assuming it's 4 hours in between. That's the assumption. So, the reason why it has to be 4 hours is to allow the food that we ate to be absorbed and to be digested properly. Now, in the process of the digestion, and you interfere it with another food, then it goes back to normal. It disturbs the system. Tapos, magre-redigest na naman siya. So, wala talaga siyang cleansing. Kumbaga, hindi niya talaga nalilinis yung system because, remember, the interdigestive period is a time to clean the entire gut. So when you disturb that, that's really what happens. Okay, let me see if I can find here. Okay, so this one. So the large intestine, that's how it looks, no? Uh, siguro you're wondering, ano ba yan? Those are cells. Yun yung mga cells natin that actually lines the colon. And this is the area that absorbs. So, when your food is not right, and you keep on loading, wala na siyang rest period, he could hardly absorb the nutrients. And that is why when we eat food, the sequence should be starting with the fruits first. We always start with fruits. You know why we start with the fruits? Because the fruit can be better absorbed when it is eaten first. What happened to us is that we use the fruit as dessert. Fruit is not dessert. Dessert is dessert. And fruit is not a dessert. Fruit should be eaten at the beginning of a meal so that by the time you feel like you're full with your food nutrients, your fruit nutrients, the moment you eat the main dish, you will not overload your system. Because you're only allowed to eat physiologically, you don't eat to the full na para kayong nag-eat all you can na hindi kayo titigil hanggat hindi kayo bundat na sa tiyan nyo. Ha? You only eat 60 to 80% of your capacity, of your volume. You don't fill it up completely. In Japanese, we call that doctrine hara hichibu. Because you only eat 60 to 80% of your food. You don't feel it to that yung talagang sobra. Kasi ang habol natin, nagbayad ako ng 3,500 for eat all you can, tapos hindi ko naman hindi ko naman nasulit. Right. Hindi ko naman nasulit. 3,500 ang binayad ko, tapos ito lang yung kinain ko. Sayang. So you would like to make sure na sulit yung binayad mo, which makes it even more complicated. So kung ayaw mo ng ganun, wag ka na mag-eat all you can. Kasi sayang. Because look at this. The highest concentration of gut microbiota is produced in the intestine. Okay? So the order of concentration should be ileum, jejunum, and duodenum. But actually, most of that would come first from the colon. And then, of course, the rest will just absorb water and electrolytes. So, in other words, the large intestine makes up the most. So, this is the effect. Pag kumain ka ng hindi healthy, let's say meat, it will stay longer in your large intestine. And the moment it stays longer in the large intestine, it will secrete all the toxins that is part of the meat that you ate. And that is why, the reason why you have colon cancer is because it stays longer than the usual. For example, it should only stay for a maximum of 8 hours. Yung pagkain mo, nagstay doon na more than 8 hours, then yung toxin will already affect the system itself, and it will cause alterations of the cells that will be the precursor for colon cancer. So that's usually the case. And then, of course, this is also the area where we absorb most of the water electrolytes. Now, the reason why you need fiber is because you would like to make sure that the stool that you form in the intestine, yung hindi kailangan i-absorb, naho-hold nung, we call that, ang fiber kasi is made up of cellulose. Cellulose is a type of carbohydrates that is not absorbed in the system. So it actually carries with it water. Kaya pag dumi mo, masarap kasi dire-diretso, hindi yung matigas. Alam mo yung tumatay ka na parang hirap ka na, ano ba to? Hindi lumalabas. Ano ba to? Ha? Pilit ka na, no? Parang magkaka-heart attack ka na dun sa bowl na hindi lumalabas yung dumi. Because most of the food that you eat are low in fiber. Kaya ang dumi mo, ang lalaki, ang titigas. But if you eat plant-based diet with lots of fiber, Very smooth. Pati yung CR mo hindi nagrereklamo. Minsan yung CR natin nagrereklamo, pluk 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 kasi nga pati hirap na hirap din siya, sabi niya, ano ba 'to pagkalaki-laki? Natawa si Rafa. Ah, may tunog 'yon. Okay? Pluk pluk pluk. Okay? So that is the normal gut barrier. You notice it's very, very much, there is a tight junction, we call that tight junction, that prevents the absorption of substances that are not necessary. So that's the long answer to your question, Bri. Any more? Ha? Oh, sige. Nararamdaman mo na ba yun? Nararamdaman mo na? Talaga? Ikaw, Diyos, nararamdaman? Hindi naman, no? Bata pa tayo, no? Okay. If you look at the slides that I've shown you earlier, okay, mayroon dong hormones called GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid. The gamma aminobutyric acid is mostly plant-based. But at the same time, if the gap between your eating and sleeping is longer, in other words, the best time to eat is before 6 in the evening if you are sleeping at around 8 or 9. Because that gives you time to digest. So that by the time you sleep, your stomach is fully rested as well. In other words, ano na siya? Clean na siya. Matutulog ka na lang talaga. But if you're eating a full meal, tapos minsan may mga snacks pa before you sleep, what's gonna happen is your stomach will keep on working and working and working. So all your blood flow goes to your intestine. And for a while, that will drive you to sleep in the meantime, but at the same time, it will wake you up earlier than you're used to wake up. So it will really alter the sleep patterns if you are sleeping medyo late na. So ideally, before 6. Pero minsan kasi napapakain talaga kayo ng 7 or lalo na pagka may crusade, nakakain kayo ng sampurado lang. Okay? So, Ellen White was suggesting 2 meals a day. Yeah, in our case, we only eat 2 meals a day. My usual eating is breakfast and dinner. Kumakain lang ako ng lunch pag Saturday because we don't eat breakfast. So our meal is just like lunch and dinner for Saturday, but the usual day is only breakfast and dinner. We don't eat lunch. So there is a whole time of rest between those meals. So imagine I eat 7 in the morning and my next meal is 4. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. So almost 8 hours in between. Some people think, hindi ka ba magugutom? Okay, this is one thing about beans. If you eat beans, without meat, of course, kasi beans with meat will cause arthritis, okay? Beans with meat is equal to arthritis. Beans without meat is no arthritis. Okay. So if you eat beans, there is what we call a second meal effect. In other words, if your breakfast is beans, you will not be hungry on lunchtime because it has its own meal effect. That's why, remember Daniel? Daniel eat pulse. And what is pulse? Pulse is made up of beans and lentils. In Middle Eastern culture, pulse is their main staple food. That's what they eat. Because that is the food that kung sa atin pa rice and whatever, ang daming ulam, sa kanila yun lang. And it's heavy. You tried eating lentils and beans. Mabigat siya. Akala mo konti lang pero mabigat. Ha? Yeah, yung beans kanina, sino nagluto ng beans kanina? Okay. Yung beans kanina, masarap yon kasi when you eat that, hindi ka basta-basta mahugutom because it has a second meal effect. Yeah. Pork and beans arthritis yun. Oo. Yes. Mongo is okay. Yeah, without the meat. Kung hindi mo talaga mapigilan, you can mix it with tinapa. Masarap din yun. Oo. Hindi naman. Yung fish is okay. Pero yung meat, hindi. Okay. Yun din yun. Magkikita pa rin sila doon. Yeah. You can eat nuts and fruits. You can binge on that. So, yes, ma'am. Mommy. You're always hungry. Maybe Colonel did not feed you well. What time do you eat your dinner? Okay. Siguro dagdagan nyo yung food nyo because kamote is still a starch carbohydrates po yun eh. Madali maubos yun. Madali may digestion. So eat something else. I don't want you to eat noodles na yung nabibili na noodles, wag instant because ang instant noodles, yung mixture nun, whether you like it or not, mayroon talagang shrimp. Try to read the ingredients. All noodles have shrimp. Crustaceans, ang nakalagay doon. Ako tinitingnan ko yan kasi minsan, sabi ko, ba't ang sarap nito? Yung pala, may crustaceans. Kaya masarap. Ni.
because of your food.